How are you, Lee?
How are you, Colin? Good to see you.
Good to see you. Love that you live in Los Angeles. First of all, this is how I led my show this morning. Ty Lue says Boston now is harder to defend than the Warriors.
Yeah.
And I thought, is that coding for what Danny Ainge is thinking, which is if we beat Cleveland tonight, we may change this reboot. What did you make of him saying that about the Celtics?
Well, no, I mean, it definitely gives the Celtics a psychological boost. It probably gives the Warriors something they can make T-shirts and balloons or whatever out of. But no, I think when you have a dominant ball handler who's not there anymore, and you have a coach as good as Brad Stevens, and you have all these pieces like the Celtics have, it is difficult to stop because they become a ball movement team, and you don't really know who's going to beat you. And this is going to be the Celtics' dilemma moving forward, is do you create one of these, not starless teams, but a team that relies on depth of talent and tons of scoring and maybe a maestro point guard? Or do you want that dominant ball handler, guy with the ball in his hands all the time, creating those shots for you? And they're going to have to make some serious decisions because, yes, they have a ton of assets, they have a ton of talent, but some of those bills are going to come due. They're going to have to pay people, and that's where they're going to have to decide what they want to do.
I don't think you want to be $200 million in on Al Horford and Isaiah Thomas.
Right.
I just don't. And I like Al Horford. I love him banking in three-pointers. But I think there's limitations. It does. I said this earlier. When LeBron lost to the Big Three in Boston, it created a ripple effect far greater than that game. It changed the league. LeBron said, I want to do that. Did. KD said, I want to do that. Did. That if Boston wins tonight, doesn't win the series,
Right.
It is telling Danny Ainge, this ball movement thing, I think it makes Lonzo Ball, I think he's in the picture. For Boston? Am I crazy?
I think they like Fultz better, but you're right. If they are not going to want to commit to Isaiah Thomas, and they're going to need that maestro point guard, there's no doubt that Ball fits that role.
He's the best,
probably better than Fultz.
He's the best distribution point guard.
No doubt.
I don't remember another college player like this. Now, Ben was a forward, Ben Simmons.
Right.
Jason Kidd. Most of these kids come out, they're scorers.
And that's what Fultz is. He's going to be, they say, 18 points right out of the box. So he is perfectly situated to play with Isaiah Thomas. Lonzo Ball and Isaiah Thomas obviously would not work. So they have to decide, I think first they're going to decide, Colin, who they want to draft. I mean, if they're in love with Fultz, if that's who they want, and that's kind of what you hear all over the place, then they kind of put off this decision. If you want Isaiah to go, if that's what you're saying is you're going to deal him for a late lottery pick, then yeah, Ball does enter the conversation at that point.
Chris Paul Spurs, we did the math earlier. He'd make more annually, $2.5 million more because of state tax ramifications, Texas none, California 13. Right. Would he want to give up the extra year? He could go to a shoe company and say, I want more, make up, compensate me. It does make a lot of sense. You know how this league works. This is why stars don't take off seasons and go to the Olympics, because their shoe companies like 4 weeks on the Olympics. You know, I look at this and I think, do you want to play for a very highly functioning mess in the Clippers? J.J. Redick's old and too expensive. Blake's hurt and can't shoot a three. DeAndre can't shoot, period. There are chemistry issues. Austin Rivers, that dad dynamic. It makes sense to go to the Spurs for Chris Paul, doesn't it?
Lifestyle-wise, there's so much stability for him in L.A. He loves living in Los Angeles. This is going to come down to when you talk about how much you want to win, because this is somebody who's the union president. He fought for that fifth year. He got that fifth year. How much does he really want to win versus how much does he want to play the way he wants to play, live the way he wants to live? This is someone who runs his team, has always run his team. He goes to San Antonio for the first time in his career. He's not running that team. That's still Greg Popovich's team. I'm not saying Chris Paul couldn't ingratiate himself into that, couldn't do it wonderfully, but that would be different for him. He would be playing for the first time for a coach who runs the team rather than a point guard. And in some ways, I think Chris Paul, as a point guard, runs his team probably better than most coaches could. But in that case, you have a coach who runs the show.
Love the NBA, and I have since I was a kid, so I enjoy the comparisons generation to generation. Baseball fans have been doing it forever. Could Babe Ruth play today? And we don't do that in the NFL, but we do it in baseball, and we do it in basketball. Is there an angle on the Jordan-LeBron thing that you think about often when the two are noted alongside each other?
I mean, I think the one advantage LeBron has, because there aren't many, when you look at it right now, the ring count obviously doesn't favor him. Sort of that worldwide popular appeal that Jordan had doesn't necessarily favor LeBron. The shooting ability that I think is so at the core of basketball favors Jordan. But I do think LeBron could beat him with longevity. I think he'll age better than Jordan, than Kobe, who had to score, right? They had to kind of be the lead dog. And really pretty much every great player in NBA history had to be the lead dog. Could you see a time, 36, 37 years old, where LeBron backs into a secondary role, even a tertiary role, and is a third guy and is creating out of the post, passing out of the post, getting rebounds? I think you could. I don't think it's necessarily in his basketball soul that he has to be the lead guy forever. I mean, he's somebody who likes to elevate the group. That's something he was criticized for earlier. Could that help him later on and help him pick off, a couple more championships when we think he's otherwise done? I don't know. I think it could.
Well, you obviously, with a letter, have a relationship with LeBron. I have none. I know Maverick Carter. I know LeBron has heard of my name because we talk about him a lot, and he does have a sense of the media.
Yeah.
But you have a much better relationship with LeBron, who has largely no relationships with the media. He keeps a very tight circle. I'll throw this irony out there.
Mm-hmm.
So 7-8 years ago, we didn't talk LeBron and Michael as much as LeBron and Kevin Durant.
Right.
Kevin was there were some people saying Durant's better than LeBron. And LeBron has pretty much trampled that, right? Wouldn't it be ironic that in LeBron's pursuit of Michael, Kevin tramples it officially by not allowing LeBron to win another title the next 2 years? Because Phil Mickelson's career would be more elevated without Tiger. What's interesting now is Phil is aging much better than Tiger.
Right.
I think it's interesting. If KD wins here, it's almost, I could be reaching here. It's almost, and I think they like each other, it is a payback. LeBron made Durant really irrelevant. He was on the cusp of being 1 and 1A. I think, Kevin, I'll have a hard time arguing LeBron's better than Michael if in the next 2 years he can't beat Durant and the Warriors.
But would that make you feel like Durant is somehow better in that conversation?
No,
or
no.
Would Durant just be a scud there?
He would be more of a scud. First of all, it would elevate Durant. He would get back into the top 10, 12 conversation of all time. But it's just weird the way the world works. You know what I mean? Kevin Durant has really got on his own team. 6 years ago, Durant was 1A.
Right.
And he's just, Steph's taking him over. Westbrook. We don't talk Durant. And it's like, in a weird way, he can come back, and the guy that kind of eliminated him from the national dialogue, he ends the Michael LeBron comparison.
To me, the sad part, Colin, though, is that he's the second best player in the league, Durant. And he has been, I think, for a while. He got hurt. It didn't always go the way it maybe should have gone in Oklahoma City. But if you were going to take a player, if you were going to draft a team, I think LeBron's the best player in the world. Forget the future. I'm saying for right now, LeBron's the best player in the world. Kevin Durant's the second best player in the world. If he wins this year, though, will this change? Will that change kind of the thinking of him? Will he be thought of that way?
You know what's really interesting? And third would be Steph Curry, in my opinion.
Right. Who a year ago was considered the best at this time a year ago. And that's, we talk about like the scud. It was a scud LeBron. It was also maybe diminished Curry's star as well.
So think about the three best players. If you put everybody on the board,
right,
most GMs would go LeBron 1, and it would be Curry, Durant, Durant, Curry, probably more Durant, Curry. When LeBron gets criticized for being a deferrer, what is interesting about the top three players in the league now, they're all, I can argue, a little more passive. And it's not about LeBron. It's about the culture he was raised in.
That's right.
Is that Curry's passive. He allowed KD to come into his tent.
Mm-hmm.
KD left a team he dominates to go to be part of a community. Mm-hmm. And LeBron passes and defers. Is that when we knock LeBron for this sort of passive deferment, this is what Andrew Wiggins,
right?
Same thing. You're knocking LeBron. The culture's changed in
That's
America.
right.
Players now like each other. They don't punch. They don't hate. The world's changed. It's flat, that the Thomas Friedman book.
Except Westbrook. That's where he's the throwback. You had Iverson yesterday.
That's why Jordan
where
loves
he's the
him.
Iverson. Right. And Harden, to some degree, is a little bit different. But no, this is part of the high school culture these guys have where they want to play on a team with 4 stars and you have to share the ball. And that's not necessarily an indictment of it. It's just different. And that's why some of these guys, that mentality, like we were talking about the aging, that may age better. That style of play will help them. Like a guy like Iverson, you had him on yesterday.
He was so great.
But by the time he's in his 30s, he still needs the ball. He wants to play the way he wants to play. There's kind of an artistry to what he does and an ego that's involved with it. Westbrook will be that way also, I'm sure. Whereas some of these guys nowadays, they don't have that. So they could age better, all of them, because there is this emphasis on playmaking, on sharing. That is sort of how they were brought up. I know there are constant indictments of the AAU culture, but to me, that's one benefit of it.
I really missed on Iverson. I didn't love him when he played all the time, but where I really whiffed is that he played a very important role.
Right.
Is that Magic was the corporate face of the league. Iverson was the street face of the league. And I think I whiffed on that.
Well, and he was the one who didn't conform. The others all...
And that's important.
They came into mainstream America and sort of conformed to it. And he brought it in and stuck with it. And I think brought an element of America that maybe wasn't seen all the time, even in sports, kind of brought it and put it in our face. And I think there was a lot of health to that.
Yeah. I mean, I think Michael Vick is one of the most impactful football players in my lifetime. Tom Brady's great, but all quarterbacks have looked like Tom Brady.
Right.
Michael Vick changed high school and college and pro football. Do we give Russell Wilson a shot? Do we look at college football now, the read option? Like, Michael Vick may not have won a Super Bowl, but if you go to high school and college football post Michael Vick, the best athlete, let's just put him at quarterback.
Right.
You don't have to be the greatest player to have impact. Iverson connected with a part of America that wasn't paid attention to, that was vital for this sport. And I think I totally whiffed on it. And yesterday I interviewed, I'm going to bring some of it back. He was fantastic. Did you have much of a relationship with him?
Not much of one. I actually interviewed him also recently, so he's kind of on the forefront of my brain too. And I agree. I mean, there's so many guys in the NBA now who you ask who they grew up watching, and so many of them reflexively say Jordan, but it can't be. I mean, they were too young when Jordan. I think they all sort of think that way maybe from YouTube, but he is the one. Like for guys like John Wall. I mean, that's who he grew up watching, and I think when you talk about sort of the way that the NBA has not run from the inner city and from hip-hop culture and has been able to embrace it,
yes,
I think goes back in large part to Iverson, when the NBA did not want that when he first came in. And I think now they realize that that's a critical part of what the NBA is.
Lee Jenkins, anything to you want us to pub here, the crossover? No, come on. What the crossover?
Sports Illustrated.
Okay.
Print magazine. Print journalism, Colin. That's where it's at.
Come on, Lee, you're going old school on me.
$5.95 at the newsstand or whatever.
Great seeing you, bud.
Thanks.
It's the Herd.